Hi everybody, my name is Mandy. I have been a makeup artist for 21 years and today I'm going to show you how to get this look as well as how to do your makeup if you're over 40, 50, 60, and I hope you can learn something new in this video. So thank you for watching and stay tuned. If you've never really done your makeup before, never really learned how to do it, and you're getting into that 40, 50, 60 range and you feel like your time has just passed and you're never gonna learn, well, I have news for you. You're gonna learn today. So I've been a makeup artist for 21 years. I am 41 now, and I think that even on myself, the things that I used to be able to do in my 20s and 30s, it doesn't really apply anymore. There's some general principles that apply no matter what the trends are. And that's what I'm gonna go over with you guys today because I think good makeup should be timeless. I think that if you stick to what works with your face, with your features, with your skin tone, that you can achieve a flawless look that you don't have to change every 5 or 10 years. That will just work for you. It'll look good from here until you're in the casket. So let's get started. So the first step with a beautiful makeup application is skin prep and skin care. And I know a lot of people get stuck in a rut of they just kind of use whatever's there. They don't really know what to use on their face. They don't know what's gonna help, what's gonna hurt, if you're sensitive, if you're oily, if you're dry. There's so many things to consider with skincare. I really try to stay on top of my exfoliation, my hydration, and my sunscreen. So I'm gonna start with some exfoliation because I haven't done that in a few days. And what I'm gonna use today are these exfoliating pads by this brand called Elemis, and they look like this. And so I'm going to just use this on my skin all over, but they are just going to help get off that loose top layer of dead skin. So your skin's constantly shedding. As you get older, it slows down. When you're younger, your skin turns over about every 28 days. And as you get older, that period is longer and longer. So your skin may turn over every 35 days, every 40 days. And so this is what I like to call controlled damage, where you are forcing that exfoliation. You can do that a number of ways. Chemical exfoliation will penetrate deeper into the skin, loosen things up, and that's when you may, depending on the strength, experience an actual peel. Okay, so that is my exfoliating pad. Those you can get over the counter. They're real gentle. I'm moving on to some Bioderma. It's a micellar water, and I'm just getting that excess chemical exfoliation off of my skin. So I definitely feel like a little bit of stinginess from that exfoliant, but it's all good. I'm using an eye cream here. This is a Korean beauty product. So this is just an eye cream, and I am just applying it all over the eye area. My skin feels so unbelievably dry right now because I washed my face and didn't put anything on, and normally I am loading it up, but I wanted to actually film this part. So the next step is a liquid toner for myself. This is a Laneige product. I have depotted it from my Pro Kit here, but I am putting it several drops into my hand and I am working it into the skin. What this is gonna do is put a lot of hydration. It's gonna force some water into the skin. So your skin is a balance of water and oil, and they need to kind of remain in balance. So if you have very dehydrated skin, that would mean you have a lack of water in the skin. And if you have very dry skin, that usually means a lack of oil. So you wanna have a good balance of both. The next is Laneige, same brand as what I just used, Water Bank Moisture Cream. It's a little heavier of a cream. If this was daytime, I would be putting on a sunscreen, but we're in the afternoon. The order of products is important too. So thinner products, so like your serums, your liquid toners, etc., are gonna go first, and then heavier moisturizer on top of it. let things soak in before you add the next layer. And I think you can only do so many layers before your skin is like, what the fuck are you doing? I can't hold any more product. So my skincare is done. This is going to kind of soak in a little bit here while I start working on my eye makeup. Okay, so before I get started on talking about my makeup routine, I want to talk about how the skin changes as we get older. So there's a few things that happen. We lose skin elasticity. So that is like your collagen, your fibrin. That makes the skin less likely to kind of bounce back as it ages. So you get wrinkling, you kind of get sagging of the skin. People's facial anatomy and genetics are different. So some people experience more of a sag. Some people get a little more hollow. Some people get very creasy, fine lines. Some people get real jowly. There's a lot of variance there, but you can only work with what you've got. So if you keep the skin that you have, you treat it well, you wear sunscreen, you try to take care of it with hydration and moisturizers, then you may be able to have nicer skin than maybe what you would have if you weren't taking care of it. So there's also volume loss. So you lose fat in the face as you get older, and that can kind of give you a sunken in look. It can sort of pull things down. So if you have a loss of elasticity and volume loss, then you can kind of look a little more gaunt or a little more hollow in some areas, and you can get wrinkles and all that stuff. Sunscreen is going to be your biggest player for future damage. Even if you feel like you're already too far gone, you're never too far gone. You can always start a new routine, or you can start something to try to take care of your skin. So it's never too late. And there are people out there who are 30 and they think their life is over. It's not, trust me. Okay, so my process here, I'm going to do just a really light makeup, and it's more about showing you the techniques around what I'm doing versus the products themselves. I always say I'm a techniques-based makeup artist. I don't really look too much into what the products are, so much as how you're using them. So the first thing I'm going to do, I want to prep my eye. I have a little bit of discoloration on the eyelid, and I'm going to do that by using a product by MAC called the Pro Longwear Concealer. And I'm just going to put this really lightly onto my eyelid. This is going to act as a base for any eyeshadow that I do over this, and it just cuts some of that discoloration. So when you are doing something like that on your eye, the thinner the layer, the better. I'm going to reiterate that a million times. Thin, thin, thin layers of all your products. I have my concealer on my eyes. We're just starting there. I'm going to do a really natural eye makeup look. And I'm not the type of person who says you don't have to use shimmer on the eye. I think you can absolutely use a little bit of shimmer, but right on the lid. When you start using too much shimmer in too many different places, or too heavy or too dark, you are accentuating the little fine lines that may be on the skin. And a lot of people get crepey eyelids, or you have hooded eyelids, and you might think like, oh, I put makeup on, I can't even see it. And that's probably because your eyes are more hooded, or you have a lot of extra skin texture there. So I'm using this palette that I made. It's mostly Viseart eyeshadows. And I'm just going to use a color that's kind of neutral. This is acting as sort of my like base color. I'm a cooler olive skin tone, kind of a neutral, cool, neutral olive, I guess, where I have a lot of blue tones in the skin, and I also have some green tones and some golden tones. So my skin usually sits very neutral, but if I use stuff that is too warm, my skin will start to look very orange. So I did a cooler tone base, and I'm going over that with a color in this palette. These are also all Viseart colors. That is right here, kind of a neutral peachy tone, and that's going kind of all over the eye. These are matte colors. Matte's not going to attract light to the surface. Even if it's a light color, it's not reflecting any shine. So we're gonna start there. And I'm not gonna really do like much of a crease color. I think I'm gonna probably stick to tight lining and mascara instead of doing crease color and a lot of heavier stuff kind of out here. So I've got a base color down. I feel like that's all that I need right now. This is my shimmer palette. I'm going to get into probably one of these here. I'm actually gonna apply it. I'm gonna apply with my finger because shimmer sometimes doesn't pick up as well with a brush. So that's really it for my shimmer. I mean, you can barely see that. It's just really subtle. So we're gonna move on to a tight line. I'm gonna start with a shadow and I'm going to add a dark brown gel liner to that. I'm gonna start with a brown shadow, create my guide, and then I'm gonna go over it with the gel liner so you can really, so you have that like base there with the shadow, which if you mess it up, you can easily fix it, and then put the liner right over it. So the other thing that you wanna try to think about when you are doing your makeup is you don't wanna really see too much product on the face, and you don't wanna have too many harsh lines. You don't want to be able to like really see what you've done. No heavy blocky brows, no heavy dark liner. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, right? But if this is like your daily look and you're learning for the first time, or you want to make your clients happy so they don't say that you've made them look like a clown, these are the tricks for that. So using too much product, having things filled in too heavy, these are things you want to try to think about when you're doing makeup. Okay, so we're gonna get on to the tight lining. Tight lining, if you don't know what that is, it is where you press your liner kind of from underneath in between your lashes. So instead of swiping and drawing liner on, especially with a pencil, you know how you get in there with a pencil and you're like this, tight lining, you're not gonna really be pulling on your skin at all. You're just gonna be looking, I have a mirror here, you're gonna be looking kind of down at yourself in the mirror to see where you need to actually go and place that brush. So going from underneath is gonna just be easier. And this is a NARS shadow from a million years ago. And I am putting it into that shadow. Any really dark brown shadow would work, a dark plum, dark green, dark navy. If you want to play with color in that way, you totally can. I like a dark kind of plummy brown because that is going to really accentuate my eyes without being too harsh like a black. Also, I will say there's nothing really inherently wrong with black either. It's just a harsher, more stark color, and for a lot of people, harsher is not always better depending on the look you're trying to go for. This is tight lining with shadow. Trying to do this while making sure I'm visible in the camera is really hard. Also, the reason I'm doing my eyes first before skin is because a lot of times if you're working with shadow, shadow is kind of falling down onto the face. So I'm tight lined already with my powder, so I'm gonna put that to the side. So I have this Inglot eyeliner. It's in dark brown. I'm going to take a little bit of that, put it on the back of my hand, and I am going to work from the back of my hand as a palette. So one of the things that something like tight lining does is it doesn't make you look like you have eyeliner on. It just makes the lashes look nice and dark at the base. Plus, if you can't really wear mascara, or it bothers you, or you have light eyelashes or whatever, this is a good trick to help you with creating that look of depth at the base of the lash. and you're pushing it in and get a little more on there. And you're doing this little method where you are kind of pushing in, wiggling it back and forth. And it's putting it on just like that. So we're going to do this other side. Pushing it into the lash. This can be a little tricky, so I'm just warning you, you may have to like play with this a few times. Plus, oopsie, I just got it on my eyelid. But since this is a gel eyeliner, it wiped off really easily. I just wiped it off with my finger. Well, this is kind of a tricky technique. Once you master it, you'll find it's actually it can get pretty easy. It's just, if your eyes are ticklish or you're not used to getting like up in there, you may blink or flinch a lot. Just know that the outcome is going to look a lot cleaner, a lot better than doing mascara or doing eyeliner really heavily from the top. My eyeliner is on, and that's all we're doing for eyeliner right now. So the next stop we're gonna do is some brows. So brows, as we get older, and I tattoo brows for a living, so I totally understand the brow drama and the issues that a lot of people go through with their brows. But what I'm going to do is just show you, if you have some brows or you have unruly brows, this is a way to help kind of make them look more youthful without filling them in super dark. So this is e.l.f. Brow Lift. I love this stuff. It is kind of a wax gel type of thing. And I get it on a spoolie here. So spoolie being a mascara wand. And I get a little bit just on the tip of the spoolie and I work it in. And this, I put it on before I put any foundation on because I don't want to pick up the foundation in the brush and then it kind of like muddies it up a bit. So I'm brushing up and kind of over. Brushing up and over. And these are more like a fine, smaller spoolie. Most spoolies are kind of a bigger mascara wand. It just depends on what you feel comfortable with. I like the smaller ones because I feel like they're just more precise. So I go through the brow and instead of brushing it all up like a barcode, I'm kind of brushing it up and slightly over, and then I'm sort of pushing it into place with my finger. So now we let that dry. So that'll take a few minutes to dry. I'm moving on to a mascara. So this is my own mascara. I'm not dipping into my client mascara. This is Telescopic L'Oreal Carbon Black. And the trick with mascara is you're just wiggling it back and forth from the root to the tip. I like this mascara because I have what I like to consider wimpy little lashes. And this mascara just coats it but keeps them separated, and it puts enough product down with one coat that I don't feel like you really need 2 coats. So far that is just my eyes, my brows, my lashes. So I'm gonna fill my brows in very lightly here. I'm gonna use an angled brush from MAC. It's probably 100 years old. And I'm dipping into these are brow colors from Viseart down at the bottom here. Mid-tone here. And I'm going along the very bottom edge. I'm gonna get up a little closer so you can see. I'm going along the very bottom edge of my brow. And I'm just barely kind of pushing it up. I don't start too heavily in the front here. And I'm kind of brushing I have very, very little product on my brow, on my brush here. Same on this side. Getting actually like in the middle of the brow first. Putting the bulk of the product down in the middle of the brow so you can kind of brush it through this way. You can brush it back through this way. If you start right here, you're gonna have a dark spot right there. So I am doing the very last little bits right in the front. And that is it for the eyebrow. So I don't need any more product on the eyebrow. That's enough. One of the things that you can do for eyeliner, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but if you want to bump up the look of your liner, you can take a smaller brush, something that is considered like a detail brush that maybe is a little rounded but kind of skinny. You can dip that in a darker shadow, say like the one that we did the tight line with, and you can actually go and smudge along that top lash line. That's something that you'd want to do before mascara. Smudge liner, smudge shadow along the lash line can look really pretty for kind of bumping this look up to be a little bit more dramatic. Okay, so eyes are pretty much done. So let's get into foundation. And the other thing about foundation is understanding your undertones. So like I said, I'm kind of a neutral olive, and neutral olive meaning I have a balance of red and blue. So you've got your cool and your warm, or I should say red and orange. So a balance of red and orange, because those two things cancel each other out and you get neutral brown. So I have a nice mix of red or orange and blue, and then I'm fair, so I have the translucency of my skin being fair, but I also have a lot of yellow melanin in the skin that when mixed with the translucency and you see the blue veins underneath, you get kind of an olive undertone. So I have more of that than I have the orange and the red. Orange and red being more golden and brown melanin pigments, red melanin pigments, as well as capillaries, little veins and things that are close to the surface of the skin that give you like a ruddiness. So I think somebody that's maybe has rosacea or something like that. With that said, face can tend to have more redness in it than chest, than hands. So you can look at your arm and you'll be like, why is my arm a different color from my face? And that's normal. That's totally normal. So when you're testing for foundation colors, don't test on the back of your hand because that's going to be a different color from your face. I like to test going from with a clean face, so make sure you've not just wiped it and it's all red or anything. So to test your foundation color, you'll start on the jawline and go down into the neck. Or you can test directly on the neck and see what kind of blends right in. Some people will test it all the way down onto the chest. However, the chest tends to get more sun damage. So you may have more hyperpigmentation there, more brown, more gold, more, just more color there. So if you were to match the neck where we're not getting as much skin, that's a much better match to the face. But you also may have several different tones in the face. Most people do. And if you have under eye circles, that can be blue or purple. You will also, if you want to, you can correct those with color correctors, which also use color theory to mask the discoloration there. Same with if you have big age spots, if you have a lot of redness, there are different color correcting rules to follow to cover those. And that is, I'm saving that for a later date for a different video because that is a topic I can get into and spend a lot of time on. One of the other things I meant to do earlier is put on a little bit of a lip mask. This is a Laneige lip mask, because I like to let that sit in and do its job while I am doing my other stuff. So with foundation, I like to be more glowy. I want to look hydrated. I want to look like I have some life in the skin. So I'm going to go with the e.l.f. Halo Glow in color number 1, as well as the Makeup Forever HD Skin Essentials palette. I think this is the one that's just blush and just like concealers and correctors. There's no shimmer in that. So that's gonna be blush for me. This is gonna be, so my process is starting with this to give some radiance to the face. So especially if you have a really dry skin, I just like to look like a disco ball, but if you have really dry skin, something like this can help with a little bit of radiance to the face. It'll help it look more moisturized. But always start with good moisturizer, good prep, and exfoliation to get some of that dead layer off. So I'm gonna start there, and then I'm actually gonna do the Dior Backstage face and body makeup. I'm going to, that's a really pretty foundation for a natural, it's a nice natural coverage. So I'm going in with this first. And you'll notice that I use like the tiniest amounts of product. So this is as much as on the back of my hand. And I'm just picking that up with a brush. And we're applying it everywhere. So even though it has some shimmer to it, you can still apply it everywhere because some of that shimmer will get cut down. And I mean, it's not a real heavy shimmer, but some of that will get cut down as you apply your foundation over it. It'll just be kind of enough that it shows through and you have this nice glow to the skin, and it's not a heavy, like frosty highlight circa 2016. Okay, so that's as much as I need of that on the skin. And then we're going in with the Dior. This is 1N. I have to see if I need to color correct this because I don't usually wear this foundation. So to see if I need to color correct, I'm putting a little bit on the back of my hand and I'm taking a little bit on a brush. And we're gonna do that test. So what do we see on this test here? That's really peachy, right? So it's too peachy and it's also slightly too dark because I'm expecting that that color is going to oxidize, meaning oxygen is going to hit it and it's going to kind of dry out those pigments and darken them up slightly. So see, as we're letting this go, that color on the neck is a little peachy. So now I have 0.5N. So this is 0.5N. And we're going with that. That is a much better blend on my neck. But I'm honestly kind of in between those, plus I'm slightly more green. So I'm in between the 0.5 and the 1. However, if this is going to oxidize, the 0.5 may be a better choice. But let's run it through somewhere like my forehead. So see, that looks a little light if I blend the 0.5 with it. That works, but we're leaning too warm, too orange, too peach. So in that instance, I need to color correct. So one of the things I'm thinking about as I'm color correcting is, what am I seeing? So one of the things I think about when I'm color correcting is, what does my skin look like next to the foundation swatch? If the foundation swatch looks very orange and my skin looks more muted, a little more dull, typically I will need blue. So blue is going to counteract some of those orange tones. Speaking of orange, I have an orange cat and he's being a nightmare right now. So blue is going to counteract some of those orange tones, but also if there's a lot of yellow in the foundation, you actually might need violet, because violet will counteract some of those gold tones, as well as having the blue in the violet to counteract some of the orange. So I'm going to start with blue because I don't know that I need red. And I'm doing a drop of blue in between those two. And I'm going to mix it with that brush. I can already see that we're getting a much more neutral color here. And that's still, it's a little light because of the concentration of the number 0.5. So I'm going to do that with, I'm doing the 0.1 and I'm doing a little bit more of the blue. Mixing that around. Sometimes with adding the blue corrector, you can almost sometimes get a little too, it can almost make it turn green. So I'm pretty happy with that. This will all blend in, and I'm pretty happy with, see how much different that is now, and how I have a color now that is much closer. I'm hoping this is reading on camera how it's reading in real life. This color is much closer to my neck color than the warmth of number 1 by itself, and the tone, the light tone of 0.5. So we're kind of mixed in. We've got a few different tones here going on. And foundation matching can get really complicated, and this is why people have such a hard time with getting their colors right, because people are usually not all the colors that come in a foundation. And a lot of colors, a lot of people have a lot more olive in their skin than I think people realize. And so there's a lot of people out there who have trouble with, or they may have cooler skin, so more blue, and they have problems with foundation just leaning so orange on them. I'm going back in with the brush that I put that shimmer on with, and I'm buffing this into the skin. This is such a nice natural finish. This will all blend, so I'm not worried too much about that, even though I do feel like I see that darker stripe. It's not bad enough for me to freak out about. So all of this just blending really nicely in the skin. The coverage on this foundation, I would say, is more sheer to medium, or maybe just, yeah, sheer to medium, which I like the finish of that. One thing you'll see me do too a lot when I'm doing makeup is I do one brush to apply, and I take another brush that has nothing on it, and I blend with that one. Because sometimes when you're putting makeup on with a makeup brush, and you're trying to blend it, it's just like moving the product around. Oh my God, my face is itchy. It's just moving the product around, and so you're not actually like working it in the skin. It just is looking streaky. And then the other thing you can do with foundation brushes, I like kind of a flat. See how this is like flat? I like to press. So I'll spread it all around, and then I spend some time pressing it into the skin, because I have pores. And if you're swiping over your pores or over wrinkles, it can just like skip over them. So if you're pressing in with light layers, remember everything is a light layer, it'll kind of get in there and it will disappear into it. So I'm happy about my color match. And this is what I do on clients all the time, is you have to test things, and then you have to know once you put the color on, you need to know what that color is doing and how to correct it to match their skin. So you just have to look at their skin and see, okay, am I seeing blue tones? Am I seeing golden tones? If somebody's really warm skinned and you use something on them that's too cool, it'll look ashy, it'll look gray, it'll look maybe even slightly green. And then you would correct with red. I have some red correctors that lean very warm red, which is a good color for that type of corrector. If you have somebody who's very fair and you put a color on them and it's too ashy and they're more pink skin, you can actually get pink color corrector, you can get violet color corrector, very pale. If somebody has a lot of red in their skin and you put it on, you may need a green corrector. So I have all of those colors in my kit. I have dark green, I have dark blue, I have dark violet, and I have light versions of all of these as well. Yellow is a corrector that I use a lot of, because sometimes somebody will have golden skin tone, but the foundation will lean to orange. And then you use a yellow to kind of pull back some of that orange while still remaining golden. So there's a lot of science that goes into color theory. I plan to teach a more thorough color theory class in the future, so stay tuned for that. So on this little palette here, we're gonna go in with a blush color. I'm gonna mix kind of this neutral blush in the middle here with some of this baby pink, and then for a little intensity, some of this berry. Back of the hand palette. You can kind of like smush it around a bit. These are really sheer texture-wise. A blush brush, a little bit on the hand. And this is, like I said before a million times, thin layers of product. So I'm working a lot of that into the brush, but I'm like patting it all out. So I'm not going to have like one area where I put it on and then there's like a streak, right? So blush placement. This is a big one for people as well as blush color. Blush placement, anything too close in here is going to pull everything kind of forward. There's this new technique too that everybody's doing, and I hate it, where people are putting blush like right under the eye and pulling it up here. People don't blush there naturally. You kind of blush here and up. You pull it up kind of into the temple slightly, and you're pressing. So with cream blush, I'm not swiping, I'm pressing. Same on this side. And a lot of blush can also be very aging. This also has a glowy look to it because it's a cream. So creams are always going to reflect light onto the skin. If you put too much blush and you need to fix that, you take the brush that you used to blend out the foundation, so the brush that didn't really have anything on it, and you can get in there. Typically when I'm applying blush and I do too much or I don't like the placement, it's usually because it comes a little too low. So using my brush to brush away from the center of the face and down into the jawline if I've applied too much down there. Okay, so the next part of this process is going to be a little bit of contour. I'm also cream contouring. This isn't what I normally use, but I don't feel like going in the other room and getting it. This is the light palette. So this is the, moving everything. This is the one that I just used for blush. This is the one that I'm going to use for the contouring because it has a little bit of a cooler contour color in it. Bronzing and contouring is, that could be a whole video in itself too because of how confusing that can be. So this palette has some cooler tone colors in it, and I'm going to show you on the skin. So we've got that tone. That for me would be more of a contour. And I'm just going to mix the warmer brown in right next to it. So I'm mixing those together, and I'm getting this kind of slightly cool bronzer tone. Bronzer inherently is warmer than a contour because a contour is supposed to mimic a shadow on the face, and a bronzer is supposed to mimic sun exposure. But if you go too warm with a bronzer and your skin is more cooler toned, so like me, I have the cooler olive, kind of neutral cool olive skin, too warm of a bronzer is going to be like highlight, like neon orange on me. So I'm using a brush that's got some, it's soft, but it's also kind of dense. And I'm putting that into the color on the back of my hand. And I am like patting that into my forehead. I start on my forehead because that's where you typically are getting the most sun. And then I'm coming down onto the face and I'm just going kind of a little bit into the temple and a little bit into the cheekbone. The other thing about bronzer, I like to go down onto the neck. Not so much as a contour, but more because if we have a lot of that color on the face, our neck doesn't get as much sun. And there's gonna be kind of, you might have a difference of your skin looking like it has a little more color in it and versus the neck. My little hairs drive me crazy. So you can see just how glowy all of this is. I have not powdered yet. I haven't done any lip. The back of my hand is a palette. So I'm pretty happy with that. Always, if you have to blend anything, especially if you're working with all creams, that little brush that you use to blend out your foundation edges, You can blend out the hairline if you have to do anything like that. The next step I'm gonna do is a little concealer. Concealer is another thing where people tend to get crazy. So we're gonna work with a fuller coverage concealer. I'm gonna work this on the back of my hand. I'm blending it into where I have that blush because I wanna pick up a little bit of that blush in there because I want this to lean slightly pinky because I get some kind of greenish, bluish undertones here. So I need peachy pink to brighten that up. And I'm not using a lot of product on my brush, and I'm working it in through the hollow here, not getting too close up under my lash line. Picking a little bit of that up and going and not getting too close under the lash line. To conceal your eye, you have to know what you need to conceal. So if you have fine lines, you want to be careful because product will inherently settle into the skin. So using really creamy products and not too much product and more color correcting versus like coverage is going to look the most natural. Trying to make sure I'm not blocking my light here. So this is all I'm doing here. Adding a little bit, and then what am I gonna do? Take that brush. This is what I do all day long on myself when I'm doing makeup. I take that brush and I'm just pressing. So I'm pressing to press the concealer kind of in further into the skin, into the cheek. What you can do after that too, if you feel like, oh, I kind of like wiped some of my blush off, you can get your blush brush again and just get right back in there. And I'm just going right where I kind of swiped it off with that brush. Right in here. And that's that. You have a little bit color that gets a little too low on the face, or some of that bronzer color has come a little too low. You can get in there too. The one other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of that concealer again. Tiny, tiny, tiny amounts. Tiny brush. Pack it onto the brush, and I get a little redness around my nose and just a little bit of discoloration around my mouth. But not much. I don't get much of that. And I don't want to look like I'm intentionally covering all these different things, because the more you cover sometimes, the more that looks obvious. I'm taking off, blotting off that little lip mask, because I don't want too much of that under the product I'm going to put on. But I am going to do a little bit more of a lip. This is just brushing on any of the, kind of blending any of my like concealer and stuff into that lip. So lip color pencil. This one matches my lip color pretty well. This is Mauve from NYX. I was born with cleft lip and palate, so I have some scarring on this side and an uneven lip line. I mean, lip liner inherently is an optional product. I like it though, but I don't like a really heavy defined lip line. I like a softer lip line. But this color matches my lips pretty well. So I like it for just a really subtle lip line. I'm not really like heavily applying it. And then I got a color recently by L'Oreal. I love these. I have so many of them. And to apply this a little bit less intense, I know we just go straight in and we're like this, which you can do that and blot some of it back off. I'm a big fan of that. Or you can also kind of work some on the back of your hand. So I've worked a little bit on the back of my hand here, and I'm going to apply a clear gloss right into that. And that, ideally, is going to give me this really nice balmy color. You don't have to do this. I just like the look of it. So I'm using a brush. I realize this is not really like practical for some people to get in there and do it like this, but it's pretty and I'm doing it. So that's that. So that kind of gives adding gloss to your lipstick directly instead of over it. It puts less product on the lip overall. Because I feel like too, if you're doing lip liner, lipstick, lip gloss, it can get like goopy looking. Whereas this, I'm barely doing a tiny bit of liner and I kind of blot it in. You can also feather it with your finger or brush. Mixing the lipstick on the back of my hand with gloss and a brush. I'm not overdoing it with any of those products. The last little part of this before I'm done is powdering. So my favorite powder right now is a loose powder. It is the Kryolan Dermacolor loose powder. And I'm going to apply it to the skin with a puff. So I'm adding a little bit of this to, oh, that was way too much, to the back of a paper towel. So I'm not dipping into my Pro kit. And I have a little puff here. These I got on Amazon. A little bit of it on the back of this. Center of the face is going to be the most oily, most shiny. Touching it, just tapping it around into that center of the face. You can already see. I think it's so funny when influencers are like, they use a powder, like, oh my God, it's so matte. Like, yeah, duh, that's what powder does. And I'm only powdering through the center of the face, getting like the tiniest what's left on the thing under my eye. You will never see me go in full strength with powder right under the eye because that is going to be crease city. But I will do it with what's left on the puff at the very end after I've powdered all of it off, because there's usually just enough on there just to kind of set. You can also set with a setting spray as well. Depends on just how many steps you want to do. So that's pretty much it for my look. I'm going to set myself with setting spray now, and then I will get a little more up close and personal into the camera so you can see the look. The setting spray I'm doing is Powder Melt. Even though I'm not really powdery, I like this one. Setting spray is optional. I think with thin layers of products, usually setting is not really super necessary. I'm just going to set a little bit more powder, just one more little layer here. And then that's it. That's it for my look. Other things that you could do with a look like this is after you've done all the cream products and you've done your powder, before setting with setting spray, you can go back in with powder products of the color products that you've used. So like your blush, your bronzer, you can do a little bit of highlight. I don't think it's necessary, and you want to be careful with how many products you're using. But if you're doing a look where it's not just your daily makeup look and you want to have a little bit more color on the face with blush, and you're going to a wedding or something and you're doing your own makeup, then by all means throw a little bit on there. You're going to be photographed. But otherwise, this is the look. Let me get a little closer into frame. So everything should look just very clean and seamless. Everything blends into each other. There's no real harsh lines on the face. The eyes are not dark and heavy. I don't have any mascara or any shadow or anything on the bottom. I'm just letting my natural skin tone be my lower lash line here. And my brows are clean. My lips are nice and balmy and natural color. Blush and bronzer is not overwhelming. And skin is set and powdered nicely without being too heavy. So I would say that the most important part of this whole process is understanding your own face and understanding what features you want to showcase. So with my skin, with my face, I think I have nice skin. So I spend a lot of time making my skin look really pretty where I have minimal eye, minimal lip. If I were to do, you know, my skin to be really shiny and pretty with a really heavy eye plus a really dark lip or a really bright lip, those are all things that are going to be competing with each other. If you want to find something that works for you, I usually recommend clients to try to make their skin be the standout as opposed to eyes or lips, because skin is just, it's the largest organ on the body, and if it looks healthy and it feels healthy and it looks glowy, you're gonna feel good about it too, and people will notice. So I always say go for skin, looking like skin, and all the other stuff on the face can kind of just recede back into that. So I hope you learned a lot in this video today, and I just want you to know that if you are over 40 or 50 or 60, hope isn't lost. You can still learn to do your makeup. If you are a makeup artist and you are wanting to work with clientele that are 40 plus, please follow along with my videos, and I hope you gain a lot of knowledge from my brain with 21 years of pro makeup artist experience in here. So I'm hoping to put more videos out there, and I just would love to know what you guys want to see. I want to help educate. I want to be a channel that you can watch and you can follow along and you can learn something. So I hope you enjoyed, and since I have YouTube now, I have to say like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.